So, check this out. They say Jannik Sinner is a cheater because he got caught doping, and they say that he should have got banned from tennis.
World number one Jannik Sinner's 3-month suspension has today sparked outrage from the tennis world.
Jannik Sinner is serving a 3-month doping ban.
But here's the thing. The levels were so low, on the order of 121 to 122 picograms per milliliter. That's hardly anything. It had absolutely no effect on his performance. Jannik Sinner has one of the most incredible rise-to-glory stories in modern tennis history. And knowing that, it makes it 10 times more impressive that he managed to become the world's #1 tennis player. Right from the beginning, he was a ski prodigy who nearly chose snow over tennis courts when he was supposed to have his big breakthrough. A doping scandal threatened to destroy everything he had built and made him question his entire career. He ended up being called a cheater by fans worldwide, and still he used that pain as fuel to become even greater. And in the end, he reached the absolute pinnacle of tennis, becoming the first Italian man to ever be ranked #1 in the world. And still, life didn't stop testing him with controversy after controversy. It all started in the breathtaking mountains of South Tyrol, in a tiny village called Sexton with barely 2,000 people, where a young red-headed kid was absolutely dominating every ski competition he entered. Looking back now, tennis fans around the world should be eternally grateful he made a different choice. His father worked as a chef and ski instructor, while his mother was a waitress at a mountain resort. They lived in this picture-perfect alpine village where skiing wasn't just a sport, it was a way of life. At just 7 years old, Jannik was already strapping on skis and flying down mountains like he was born to do it. But this wasn't just casual weekend skiing. This kid was exceptional. By age 8, he was winning regional competitions left and right. His parents genuinely thought they had the next Olympic skiing champion living under their roof. The local ski club coaches were amazed by his natural ability. One coach even said, "In 30 years of coaching, I had never seen a child with such natural balance and fearlessness on the slopes." But then, almost by accident, everything changed. His father, Hans-Peter, wanting his son to try different sports, took him to a local tennis club in nearby Bolzano, just to see if he'd enjoy it. The moment 7-year-old Jannik picked up a tennis racket, which was almost too heavy for his small hands, something magical happened. It wasn't his technique, because frankly, he had none. It wasn't his form, because he was swinging the racket like it was a ski pole. It was something deeper. It was the fire he felt when he struck that yellow ball. His father later recalled, "I saw something in his eyes that day." It was the same look he had when he was racing down a mountain, but somehow even more intense. The impossible decision that changed everything. For the next few years, Jannik lived a double life. Winters were for skiing, summers were for tennis. He was excelling at both, but as he got older, the choice became unavoidable. At age 13, an age when most kids are worried about homework and video games, Jannik was facing a life-altering decision that would determine his entire future, skiing or tennis. The tennis option meant something that terrified his parents. Their 13-year-old son would have to leave home, move 400 kilometers away to Bordighera on the Italian Riviera, and live with strangers at Riccardo Piatti's tennis academy. By age 16, something incredible started happening. All those hours of practice, all that pain, all that loneliness of being away from his family, it was finally paying off. Jannik's game was evolving rapidly. His forehand, which had once been his weakness, became a devastating weapon. His movement, which had been awkward, became fluid and powerful. Most importantly, his mental toughness, forged through years of adversity, became unbreakable. In 2018, he won his first ITF Junior title. Then another. Then another. But the real breakthrough came in 2019 when he decided to turn professional at just 17 years old. Most people thought he was crazy. He was ranked outside the top 500 in the world. He had never won an ATP match. But Jannik believed in himself, even when nobody else did. His first ATP match was against Steve Johnson, a seasoned American player ranked in the top 50. Everyone expected Jannik to lose quickly. Instead, he won in straight sets. The tennis world started paying attention. By 2020, Jannik had climbed to around rank 80 in the world. Impressive for a teenager, but still not enough to be considered a serious threat to the top players. Then came the ATP Masters 1000 tournament in Monte Carlo, and everything changed. In the quarterfinals, Jannik faced the world number 1, Novak Djokovic. This wasn't just any match. Djokovic was the defending champion and had won the tournament twice before. Nobody gave Jannik a chance. The betting odds were heavily against him. Even his own team was nervous. But Jannik stepped onto that court with ice in his veins. He won the first set 6-4. The crowd was stunned. He won the second set 6-2. The tennis world was in shock. After the match, Djokovic, who rarely gives effusive praise to opponents, said something that sent shockwaves through tennis. "This kid is special. He reminds me of myself when I was young. That hunger, that determination, that fearlessness. Mark my words, he will be number 1 someday." But Jannik wasn't done. Just a few months later, he faced Djokovic again in the Vienna Masters. Once again, he won in straight sets. Suddenly, the tennis world realized this wasn't a fluke. This mountain boy from Italy was the real deal. 2021 and 2022 were years of steady progress. Jannik was winning ATP titles, climbing the rankings, and establishing himself as one of the most promising young players in the world. But Grand Slams were different. The pressure was bigger, the matches were longer, and the competition was fiercer. At the 2022 Wimbledon, Jannik reached the quarterfinals but lost to Djokovic in a heartbreaking 5-set match. He was devastated. At the 2023 US Open, he reached the 4th round but cramped up and had to retire from his match. He was crushed. People started whispering, maybe he's not built for Grand Slams. Maybe he cracks under the biggest pressure, but Jannik used those failures as fuel. He hired coach Darren Cahill, one of the most respected coaches in tennis, to work alongside Simone Vagnozzi. He restructured his training. He worked on his mental game. He prepared him like never before. And then came the 2024 Australian Open, the Grand Slam triumph that made history. The 2024 Australian Open started like any other tournament for Jannik. He was seeded 4th, which was high, but not high enough to be considered a favorite. He cruised through the early rounds, but nobody was paying much attention. The focus was on Djokovic, who was trying to win his 11th Australian Open title. But then, in the semifinals, something magical happened. Jannik faced Djokovic in what would become one of the greatest matches in Australian Open history. He lost the first 2 sets. Down 2-0 against the greatest player of all time, in a Grand Slam semifinal, most players would have folded. Not Jannik Sinner. He won the 3rd set. Then the 4th. Then, in a 5th set that had the entire tennis world on the edge of their seats, he defeated Djokovic 3-6, 3-6, 6-4, 6-4, 6-3. The comeback was so incredible that even Djokovic was in awe. After the match, he said, "I have never lost a match like that before." He played like a champion when it mattered most. 3 days later, Jannik defeated Daniil Medvedev in the final to win his first Grand Slam title, becoming the first Italian man to ever win the Australian Open. But the celebration was short-lived. Just months after his Australian Open triumph, when Jannik was at the absolute peak of his career and climbing toward the number 1 ranking, news broke that would shake him to his very core. In March 2024, he had tested positive for a banned substance called clostebol. The tennis world exploded. Social media was brutal. Comments like, "Another cheater," "His Australian Open doesn't count," and "Just another doper" flooded every post about him. Some of the worst attacks came from fellow players. Nick Kyrgios tweeted, "Ridiculous, whether it was accidental or planned. You get tested twice with a banned, steroid, substance. You should be gone for 2 years. Your performance was enhanced. Massage cream? Yeah, nice. But here's what most people didn't know, and what made the situation even more heartbreaking. The amount found in his system was so microscopic, less than a billionth of a gram, that it was barely detectable. His team immediately investigated and discovered the source. His physiotherapist had used an over-the-counter wound healing spray containing clostebol to treat a cut on his own finger, then gave Jannik a massage without wearing gloves. The contamination was completely accidental, completely innocent, and completely devastating to Jannik's reputation. An independent tribunal eventually cleared him of any wrongdoing, but the damage was done. Every match he played, Every victory he earned, people questioned. The period following the doping revelation was the darkest of Jannik's career. He would later admit, "There were days when I didn't want to get out of bed. Reading all those comments, seeing people I respected in tennis doubt me, it was crushing." His team was worried about his mental state. His parents flew to be with him. Even Darren Cahill, his coach, said, "I've never seen him so broken. For the first time since I'd known him, I saw doubt in his eyes." But then something incredible happened. Instead of hiding, instead of making excuses, instead of feeling sorry for himself, Jannik made a decision that would define his character forever. He decided to let his tennis do the talking. When asked about how he dealt with the controversy, his response was pure class. "I know who I am. I know I would never cheat. I know that the people who truly matter to me know the truth. That has to be enough. Now I need to prove it on the court." And prove it, he did. What happened next was one of the most remarkable championship runs in tennis history. At the 2024 US Open, with the controversy still swirling around him, Jannik stepped onto the court in New York with something to prove. He didn't just win the tournament, he dominated it. He dropped only 2 sets in the entire tournament and defeated Taylor Fritz in the final to become the first Italian man to ever win the US Open. After the final, with tears in his eyes, he said, "This one is special. Not because of the title, but because of everything we went through to get here. Every doubt, every criticism, every sleepless night, it all led to this moment." But he still wasn't done. At the ATP Finals in Turin, playing in front of his home crowd in Italy, Jannik won the biggest title of his career. The crowd was chanting his name so loudly that the stadium was shaking. And then, the ultimate validation. He finished 2024 as the year-end world #1, becoming the first Italian man in tennis history to achieve this feat. Today, as you are watching this video, Jannik Sinner stands at the absolute pinnacle of men's tennis. He's the world #2. He's a 4-time Grand Slam champion. He's won the ATP Finals. He's achieved everything that seemed impossible for that scared 13-year-old boy who left the mountains of South Tyrol with nothing but a dream. But his story isn't just about rankings or trophies or prize money. It's about a kid who chose the harder path when the easier one was right there. It's about someone who turned loneliness into strength and doubt into determination. It's about a champion who faced his darkest moment, when the entire tennis world questioned his integrity, and emerged not just stronger, but better. When people ask him about his incredible journey, he always says the same thing. "Every struggle made me stronger. Every setback taught me something. Every person who doubted me gave me more motivation. I wouldn't change anything because it all led me here." His parents, who made that impossible decision to let their 13-year-old son chase his dreams 400 kilometers from home, now watch him play from the stands with tears of pride in their eyes. His former ski coaches, who thought they were losing the next Olympic champion, now admit they were wrong. One of them recently said, "We lost a great skier, but the world gained an incredible tennis champion." I think we can live with that trade. And Riccardo Piatti, the coach who saw something special in that awkward mountain boy, recently said, "In 40 years of coaching, I've worked with many talented players, but I've never seen anyone with Jannik's combination of talent, work ethic, and heart. He's not just a great tennis player, he's a great human being." At just 24 years old, Jannik Sinner's story is far from over. He's already launched the Jannik Sinner Foundation, dedicated to using education and sports to change children's lives, just like tennis changed his. He's become a role model for millions of young athletes around the world who face their own impossible choices and overwhelming obstacles. And most importantly, he's proven that sometimes the greatest champions aren't the ones who had everything handed to them. They're the ones who had to fight for everything they got. From the ski slopes of South Tyrol to the tennis courts of Melbourne, New York, and everywhere in between. From a lonely 13-year-old boy crying himself to sleep in a stranger's house to the world #1 tennis player. From facing the biggest scandal of his career to emerging stronger and more respected than ever. This is what happens when talent meets unbreakable will, when dreams meet determination, and when a champion's heart refuses to quit, no matter how dark things get. This is the incredible story of Jannik Sinner, the mountain boy who conquered the world,